Hi everyone. So today's assignment we are going to do in this particular assignment series where I am going to give you a question, then I will give you a pause where you can just pause the video and try to answer it if you have studied that particular topic, and after that you can come back and see the approach that I adopt and the answer that I provide you. I am going to provide both the approach as well as the answer, not just the answer, because it is also important to understand how to answer. So that will be covered in approach, how to think about an answer, how to structure and frame an answer. All these things are very, very important. So I'm going to go over these and then I'm going to answer the question. So the question today for this assignment is, what are the forces that influence ocean currents? Describe their role in fishing industry of the world. Now this is a very scoring question. This is a geography question. It covers both the aspects. It covers the physical geography because it is asking the forces that influence ocean currents, and it is also asking the role of these currents in fishing industry, which is more of an economic geography question. So it's a mix of two different kind of fields of the geography field, and they are asking you to answer that in 250 words. So it's a very high scoring question because you are getting almost 15 marks for this kind of a question, which is a very standard topic that is discussed in geography in all the books and all the classes, hopefully. So what I want you to do is, I want you to now take a little bit of a time, maybe take 30-40 seconds, think of how you will frame these questions. If you have not studied this topic, maybe go and study this a little bit through an online search or through the chapter of the book that you have, and think about how you will frame the answer. Think about how you will actually think about the approach to answer this question, how you will structure it, because that is more important. Afterwards, answer writing you can learn through practice also. Okay, this is what I want you to do. This is how I also do things in the book. So I want you to learn rather than just copy something. Okay, so take a break of around 2 minutes, think about it, come back, just pause this video and come back. When you come back, you can look at the approach that I adopt for this particular answer. Okay, so now you must have thought about this particular question. Let us see how you thought and how I would think, and maybe you will think better than me, but it is okay to learn from some of the ways in which I will think. And if you have any new ways to think about this particular kind of question, definitely go ahead and write that in the comments, share your knowledge. But let me also tell you how you can think about this particular question. So the way to think about this question is very simple, very easy. You have to, number one, remember the topic of ocean currents, and in the ocean currents topic there is a very simple diagram where the world map is there and the ocean currents are shown on that world map, that from where to where which current is there. So that is the pretty much answer to a first part of the question, that what are the forces that influence the ocean currents, because once you have studied this map, it is easier to remember those particular points. So the first part is, what are the forces that influence the ocean currents? So you have to write out the forces that are influencing the various ocean currents, and the second part is how these ocean currents impact the fishing industry in the world. Okay, so the first part of the question has very specific points. If you remember these points, then it will become very easy to write an answer, because you can write down these points and then frame the questions around that. So when I was in the exam, I would think about it like this. I would try to remember, I would try to recollect, okay, I have studied about ocean currents. I know that the major ocean currents are currents like, in the Pacific Ocean, in the Indian Ocean, and these particular currents are like the Gulf Stream. You might remember the Gulf Stream. You might remember there is one in the South Equatorial region. In the Indian Ocean, there is equatorial counter, north equatorial counter. Then there is Labrador on the eastern side of the American continent, on the northeastern side of the American continent. So like that, there are different kind of currents, warm currents, and then there are also cold currents. Okay, and all these currents get affected by different kind of forces, geographical forces, or like nature's force, wind. There is temperature, there is density, okay, there is solar heating, or basically the sun's energy, then there is salinity of the water, and one of the most important ones, the Coriolis force. If you have studied properly geography, then this you will always remember, because this question has been asked multiple times. So these are the main things that affect. So you have to basically give one liner on each of these in the answer. So the first part of the answer is simply forces influencing ocean currents. Now in this kind of questions, you necessarily don't have to give an introduction. What is the need of an introduction? What will you introduce? Are you going to introduce the Indian various currents? Maybe you can write a line or two that there are various ocean currents in the world which happen across different oceans. Example this, but it is not going to add that much value. So it is just a formality. If you need to do it, do it. Otherwise, I would say you can just get to the point and write forces influencing Indian ocean currents, because that way you save time and you can go to the content where you will get major marks. And then you can come to the first point where you can write about wind, which is a primary driver. Wind is the primary force influencing ocean currents. The friction between wind and ocean surface creates current movement. Basically, it is the wind that goes and strikes on the surface of the ocean and makes it move in a particular direction. So see, you can also show the map here now. Normally it depends on the time available, but I would quickly draw a rough map. Always start with India, kind of draw this Asian area here. So it is hard to draw, but I have not had practice for a while, but I will still. This is Europe, okay. Here is Africa. I have not left a lot of space for, unfortunately, Australia, okay, and here is Antarctic, and so I have not left a lot of space for Americas, but try to leave that space, did not. Okay, and then the Greenland also, you need the space here, okay. And then here you can show the currents. The Labrador is here, the Gulf Stream is here. Not the best diagrams I have drawn, but you will have to do it. The Benguela is here. So like there are currents on this side, so unfortunately I have not drawn it well. So this is the Peruvian. So now you have to pay attention that cold currents you should, because how otherwise you will say, and these are the warm currents. So like this you can make a small legend, and then South Equatorial, Indian Sea. These are warmer currents, these are colder currents. So like this you can make all the currents. This is a Kuroshio current here. So like this, make all the currents, show it in the map. Sorry, it has not been the best map I have drawn, but you get the idea which I am trying to give it to you. So now Coriolis force or effect, one of the most important factors, the rotation of Earth causes the Coriolis effect. Deflecting moving air, that has an effect on air and water to the right in the northern hemisphere. and left in the summer. So now you are giving exact examples of what is happening in the northern side. It is getting deflected and vice versa. So you also provide that particular temperature and density, variation in temperature lead to differences in water density. Warm water is less dense, so because it is less dense, tends to rise, creating low pressure, while cold water sinks, creating high pressure areas. Okay, so this is how, because the pressure gets created, low pressure, so you know that from which pressure area to which pressure area the wind movement will take place if the pressures are different. Okay, solar heating, equator versus poles. The sun's heat is more concentrated near the equator. Okay, because in the equator it is more intense, the heat is more intense. This difference of heat from equator to poles drives ocean currents. Okay, and then finally salinity. The salt in the water also, haline circulation. Okay, this is known haline. So the more words, keywords you will use, the more it will help. If you don't, try to just give two-liners about the particular thing you are writing about. So water density gets affected by salinity, so you can write about that. I'm not going to explain the whole point, but you can write about the water density, or if you don't remember, go and read about it a little bit so that you get an idea. Now I'm going to write on the second point, which is second part of the question, important part of the question, role of ocean currents. Role of ocean currents in fishing industry. Okay, how ocean currents are affecting the fishing industry. This is also given in the books only. Upwelling and nutrient transportation happens because of. So when the ocean currents are moving, they are going down and up also, right? Like in a circular way. So when they go down, the water goes down, it takes the nutrients from the below and it transports it up. So ocean currents in upwelling zones bring nutrient rich water to the surface. It's moving, everything is moving, thereby providing rich food source for fish, and these areas become very good for fishing. Migration of fishes. So fishes migrate, they follow currents. So fishes migrate, they are following ocean currents, and that is how also fishing gets affected where the fish is available. Then thermocline impact also happens, or the temperature impact. So what happens is the ocean currents transport water to different temperatures, and fish also travel accordingly, because if the fish need cooler waters, they will accordingly go ahead and travel accordingly. Okay, then there are various eddies and fronts. Ocean currents create various kind of fronts and eddies, because of which plankton and the small fish get affected. So you can write about eddies and fronts. These are current induced phenomena because of which this also happens. So basically, in the conclusion, then you can write about how understanding forces that influence these currents is crucial for understanding fish distribution, optimizing the fishing efforts, and making sure that the fish management strategies are sustainable. So now when you are for concluding, how does your conclusion become different from other people? You talk about sustainability, because unless we understand these currents properly and unless we understand the distribution, because fish is one of the biggest food for humans in the world, so to give a good impression on the person who's reading, how to make it little different, little bit that +1, he will give you extra, he or she will give you extra points. You can talk about how understanding of these forces that affect the ocean currents and how the ocean currents are behaving is important, because it affects the fish population across the world, because of which we should understand that in order to do proper fishery management, optimizing fishing efforts and distribution of fishing, so that we can do better practices, agricultural fishing, farm practices, sustainable practices. Okay, so this is how I will write this answer. Hopefully you understood, hopefully you learned something, and if you have any questions, definitely let me know. More than happy to answer those for you. Thanks, bye.